Trevor Deely was born in the Irish town of Nice. He was a rather tall guy, over 180 centimeters, with reddish blonde hair and a peculiar gait. When walking, his hands never moved and always remained at the bottom, located at the seams. He was a quiet teenager, not particularly athletic or successful at school. In principle, exactly the same as his older brothers and sisters, and like most children. Among the school subjects, Trevor really liked mathematics. After graduation, he again, like many, did not know what he wanted to do in life. He tried to study business at the Waterford Institute of Technology, worked part-time after classes in a supermarket. But already in the second year, he decided that it wasn't his and dropped out. Thanks to his older sister Michelle, he enrolled in computer courses in Dublin. The guy plunged into this topic with his head. At last, he found an occupation that gave him pleasure, and in which he was very good. After completing the courses, he received 3 job offers. Trevor asked his father's advice on how best to proceed. "My father advised me to accept the bank's offer, because working in a bank is safer than in other places." In May of 1999, Trevor started working at the Bank of Ireland. He worked in the department in a team of 10 people. All the employees worked in one room, and their boss, Derek Tracy, was sitting in his office behind a glass wall. According to the boss, Trevor was a reliable employee. There have never been any special problems with him. He wanted to study, was ambitious, and got along well with the team. Trevor was very happy. He always had a big smile on his face. "I've never been mad at people." Trevor's closest friend, with whom they grew up together, was Glenn Holland. They met in the first grade at Nice. They never fought. Neither because of the girls, nor because of anything else, we were always together. Another friend's name is Conlet Lunan. When friends were 20 years old, guys went to pubs and clubs. It wasn't quite usual for their age, but young people preferred alcohol to drugs. They just started to have their own money, life was getting better. Glenn Kalin worked as a flight attendant on long-haul flights, mainly in the directions of Los Angeles and New York. As an airline employee, Glenn had access to free flights, and flights with big discounts for family members and friends. Shortly before the events that will be discussed later, Glenn arranged for his friend's name to appear on his discount card. The last time Glenn saw Trevor was at Dublin Airport at the end of November 2000. Then the guy was heading to Alaska. Trevor had a mini vacation, and Glenn had a ticket at a big discount. Alaska is a great way to take a break from Ireland. Michael Deely, Trevor's father, said that his son met a couple of girls from Alaska in Ireland. The girls studied at the university in Anchorage. It became known that before the trip, Trevor called and wrote off with one of these girls. The last time his parents saw Trevor was the same day he returned from Alaska. He stopped by his parents' house in Nice for the day, and the very next day he was supposed to be at work in Dublin. Trevor told his parents about what he saw in Alaska. However, Michael, the father, said he would listen to these stories over the weekend when Trevor came to visit them again. But Trevor replied that he had no plans to come next weekend. However, Trevor must have changed his plans, because the following weekend, Saturday the 9th of December, he arranged with friends Glenn and Conleth to meet at the Knees in a local pub. The Christmas corporate party at the bank was scheduled for Thursday, December 7th. Some employees, including Trevor, went to the Copperface Jack's nightclub first. Then they gathered at the Hilton Hotel. The same evening there was a corporate party of Michelle, Trevor's sister, in London. She hadn't seen her brother since Easter. Brother and sister exchanged email addresses before Christmas. "My sister was planning to come home for the holiday, give gifts to her family." The last message was about discussing the size of Trevor's t-shirt. That weekend, his sister bought Trevor a Christmas present in London, a blue Ralph Lauren t-shirt. Meanwhile, in Nice, Glenn and Conlet were drinking in a pub. Glenn decided to call Trevor, but because of the noise at the Hilton Hotel, they could not hear each other. It was about 11 o'clock in the evening. Then Trevor called Glenn back, but he did not answer after leaving the Hilton. Many bank employees, including Trevor and his boss Derek Tracy, went to the Buckvallis nightclub, according to news reports. On the night of the 8th of December of the 2000th year, heavy rain was pouring, and a northwesterly squally wind was blowing. Because of this, there was a great demand for taxi services in Dublin. Accordingly, the streets became deserted. Derek Tracy said that the fact of such excitement about taxis did not bother Trevor Deely at all, since he regularly walked to work. Trevor rented an apartment not far from where the club was located, just 2.5 kilometers away. He rented an apartment with 2 girls, one of whom is a friend of Michelle, Trevor's sister. Carl Pender, Trevor's colleague and head of the Bank of Ireland department, did not go to the corporate party. He had to go to work on the night shift because his partner, who was supposed to take over the shift, fell ill. Carl was the only employee of the department who was in the bank building that night. That was until Trevor suddenly walked into the bank, soaked through. It was 3:25 in the morning. I was surprised. You hardly expect to see someone at work after the Christmas corporate party. When he came in and asked if I had time to have a cup of tea, I replied, yes, of course. I had some business to finish, and he said, great. I'm going to log in for a minute. While Carl was finishing work, Trevor connected to a nearby computer. I don't know for sure if he was doing something for work or just sending an email. I didn't ask him about it. About 10 minutes later, Trevor and Carl went to the dining room. Trevor was drinking coffee, Carl was drinking tea. Trevor had a decent drink, but I wouldn't say he was very drunk. There have been times when I've seen him in worse shape. They talked about the corporate party of those who were there. And then Carl went back to work. Trevor took one of the corporate umbrellas from work, said goodbye and left the building. His friend Glenn was sleeping at his home in Nice. He usually put his cell phone next to his bed, but that night it needed to be charged. So Glenn left the phone plugged into the wall outlet downstairs in the kitchen. He was asleep and didn't hear the phone ring. When Glenn woke up in the morning, he saw a voice message on his phone. Hello, Glenn, couldn't get through. I'm going home, everything's fine. We'll talk tomorrow. The voicemail was sent around 4 in the morning. Glenn couldn't be more precise about the time, since he deleted the message immediately after listening. Glenna was a little surprised that Trevor called in the middle of the night, being sure that his friend was asleep. They were best friends, but still, Trevor had not been observed making such early calls before. The last activity on Trevor's phone was observed on December 8 at 4:06. From then on, Trevor Deely was never seen or heard from again. In the 2000th year, there were much fewer CCTV cameras than today, but there was still a camera near the Bank of Ireland. Trevor's friend Conlett Lunan worked for a telecommunications company that serviced video surveillance equipment. At that time, all the recordings from the cameras were written on videotapes. Some companies stored camera recordings for an extended period of time. Others re-recorded the tapes after 24 hours. In the days following Trevor's disappearance, Deely Conlett and his other friends walked along potential routes that Trevor could have used to return home that night, and they asked organizations to check the recordings of their surveillance cameras, especially focusing on the early morning hours of Friday, December 8th. The only organization that had anything interesting on their records was the Bank of Ireland, the place of work of Trevor Deely. The bank's rewriting cycle was 28 days. And a little more. Friends were late, having not seen the last video with Trevor. The most interesting thing is that when searching for records, it was not the police who tried, but the guy's friends. The recordings show a man in black. He waited at the bank gate for about half an hour before Deely arrived. When Trevor arrived, they talked for a while. 2 minutes after Trevor entered the bank building, 2 more men approached the gate. Later, these 2 are identified as bank employees. When Deely leaves the bank, the man in black will no longer be on the record. Further, the cameras show a tall man under an umbrella with the bank's logo. walking along a wet road at the intersection of Bagot Street and Haddington Road. Recording time is 4:14. Deely's family members confirmed that Trevor is on the record. He's walking in the direction of his apartment. About 30 seconds later, a man in black walks past the bank. According to the police, this is the same person as in the previous recording. This recording is the last image of Trevor before he disappeared. Despite the subsequent numerous appeals of the police to the mysterious man to come to the police station, it will not be possible to identify him. On Friday morning, the 8th of December, Trevor Deely did not come to work. Trevor's boss, Dara Tracy, did not worry much, because many people had drunk too much the previous night, and a similar situation was to be expected. It wasn't until Monday, December 11th, that Derek Tracy found out that no one had seen or spoken to Trevor Deely in the past few days. Excited, he went to the department and said, "We have problems." The guy couldn't be found. What to do? Then a series of calls began throughout Dublin, Nice, and the surrounding areas. Trevor's family and friends were notified that he had disappeared. The first call was to Anne Deely, Trevor's mother, at their family home in Nice. She, in turn, called her husband Michael. After the call, Michael drove to Trevor's apartment. It turned out that his friends had not seen or heard from him since Thursday. Michael didn't have the keys to his son's apartment, and no one answered the door when he rang the doorbell. After the mother called her eldest son Mark, he decided to come to Nice. He had to leave his wife at home, who was pregnant with their first child and was in the 3rd month. He was Michael and Anne's first grandchild. When leaving, Mark had no idea how much he was leaving his wife alone. As a result, Mark Deely was not at home for more than 2 months. When Mark arrived at his parents' house, his mother and father were at home and had no idea what to do. After conferring, they made a decision. First of all, file a police report. Glenn and Trevor's other friends went to the police station with Michael and stayed at home on the phone. Meanwhile, Mark went to Dublin. It was already dark in the city, but there was a full house on the streets. Since the arrival of then-US President Bill Clinton was expected in the city the next day. In search of his brother, Mark started with the Copperface Jacks Club. Assuming that Trevor could have gone back there, the brother asked if the club staff had seen people lying around nearby on the weekend. Then he walked in the direction of Trevor's apartment. He went into alleys and doorways, looked at hidden places, and looked into garbage cans, preparing to see the worst. He talked to the security service of the US Embassy. The security guard said that in connection with the arrival of Bill Clinton, all the garbage cans were emptied over the weekend. All hiding places have been checked, and that Mark is wasting his time hoping to find what they missed. On Monday, the 11th of December, Michelle Deely, Trevor's sister, was in London, at home with friends, when her mother called and told her the terrible news. She flew home the next morning, having bought a ticket for the very first flight. Although Trevor's last actions were known, the family was saddened by the fact that they began the search almost 4 days later. Relatives pasted hundreds of laminated ads, distributed thousands of leaflets. We went from one house to another. We went into pubs, clubs, restaurants, stopped at street intersections, talked to homeless people, and watched CCTV footage. They mapped out all possible routes from the club to Trevor's house. They did it all day after day, night after night. Dubliners have been watching Trevor's face all December, looking down at them from the countless pillars of the city. Some leaflets were glued to the poles for many months and even years, until they were finally spoiled by precipitation. No one wanted to be the same person who dared to tear down a leaflet with information about a missing person. Later, the police praised the excessive activity of the Deely family in trying to solve the mystery of Trevor's disappearance. On Tuesday, December 12th of the 2000th year, a day after Trevor was reported missing, divers searched the bottom of the Grand Canal. According to Mark, this was the very place where his brother's misfortune could have happened. He and his sisters and friends stood on the shore while the divers worked in the water. The police found nothing in this channel. Even the umbrella that Trevor had taken from the bank. The police did not expect to find any traces in the canal. And a little later, a video from a surveillance camera was discovered, which showed Trevor crossing the channel and walking on. Trevor wasn't the only one missing. All the things that were with him that evening were also missing. Umbrella, raincoat, mobile phone, wallet. On the weekend, when the young man disappeared, his sister called his cell phone about 4 times. She didn't know that her brother was missing yet. She said that the phone rang for a while, but then it just disconnected. Experts in the field of communication reported that if the phone was in the water, the signal would not be able to pass through the water column. 2 Irish police officers went to Alaska, to Anchorage, where Trevor flew shortly before his disappearance. They talked to a young girl to whom Deely flew. Trevor's sisters, Michelle and Pamela, also visited Anchorage at various times to learn something about their brother. But neither the sisters nor the detectives managed to get any valuable information. Mark was in Dublin from the 10th of December 2000 to the 22nd of February 2000. All these days he continuously searched for his brother, but could not find a single trace of him. He hopes to get answers one day. Good or bad, it doesn't matter. The unknown is the worst. Michael Deely, Trevor's father, worked part-time for 6 months after his son's disappearance, and devoted all his free time to searching for his son. The windows of his office overlook exactly the channel next to which Trevor was last seen. And this picture reminds him every day of his loss. Michael and Ann Deely are feeling hopeful. This is very important. You have to believe in something. You should have the strength to get up every day. Parents hope that someday someone will remember about the early hours of Friday, the 8th of December of the 2000th year. And it will help solve the mystery of what happened to their missing boy. Only 12 years later, on December 23, 2012, Michael Deely, Trevor's father, gave a detailed interview to one of the publications about the disappearance of his son. This was the first interview during which detailed information on the case was provided. The gradual interest in the case faded, and in the end it was closed. However, in December of the 2016 year, 16 years later, a new case was opened. The police managed to increase the resolution of the video from the surveillance cameras, which they published in April 2000 of the 17th year. The man in black who walked after Trevor Deely to the bridge was the same man he had talked to at the bank gate. At the same time, a reward was offered for any information on the case in the amount of €100,000. In August 2017, the Garda Síochána Police of Ireland. I started searching on a 3-acre plot in the suburbs of Dublin, whose episode. It's about 8 kilometers from where Trevor was last seen. The informant claimed that Trevor was killed on the night of the disappearance by a criminal from the Dublin area of Crumlin. His name is known to the police. The gang of which he was a member was engaged in the sale of drugs and prostitution in the area of Trevor Deely's disappearance. In relation to the same gang, an investigation was conducted into the involvement in the murder of a prostitute. In June 1998, the informant said that Deely and his alleged killers did not know each other, and it was a chance meeting. However, a 6-week search did not bring results. Although drugs and weapons were found in the man's possession during the search, investigators concluded that gang members were not involved in this case. As a result, the Garda curtailed the search in September of the same year, saying that they had not found additional information that would help solve the mystery of Trevor Deely's disappearance. Michelle Deely, Trevor's older sister, said that in addition to the uncertainty about her brother's fate, the most frightening thing for her and her family was to face the theories and wild assumptions of internet experts and couch critics about what could have happened to her brother. Despite the best efforts of Trevor Deely's family of friends, as well as law enforcement agencies, his disappearance still remains an unsolved mystery.